Hello again, this is Professor Roldan in Topics in Mathematics. We're going to talk about 3.2 and 3.3, which is about truth tables in this video. And so I want to begin with reviewing some concepts and symbols from 3.1. So on page 98, table 3.1, you have a lot of the symbols that we discussed in the previous video. So first of all, we have the negation. Okay, and that's going to be, the meaning is not. Okay, you read it, it's not. And then we have the conjunction. Which looks like an upside down V, and that's and. Then we did a disjunction, which looks like a V, and that's or. We did the conditional, which is if then. And we did the biconditional. Which is a bidirectional arrow, and that's if and only if. Okay? So we're going to work with those today once more, but this time we're going to use truth tables. And so let's begin with the negation. Okay, so the negation, so you have two cases. Because we're only going to look at one statement. You can only negate pretty much one statement at a time. So our statement is going to be P. And we have two cases. We have a true statement and we have a false statement. Okay? So the negation of P, or not P, is basically you're going to just switch the truth value. So it is going to go from true to false and from false to true. Okay, so those will always be opposites when you negate a statement. So right here in red would be the answers for negation, okay, for true and false. Now that's one statement. What if we have two statements? So if we have two statements, let's take a look at our statement cases. So we can have true or we can have false. Okay. And if the first statement is true, the second statement could be true as well. So from this true or false scenario, if it's true, then the second, remember this is two statements. So the second statement could be true, or the second statement could be false. Okay. Or if the first statement's false, then the second statement could be true, or the second statement could be false. Okay, so so basically you're going to have 4 cases, okay? So for example, the first case will be true, true, okay? So this is, let's say, case number 1. Okay, that's the first case. The second case will come from true, false. The third case will come from false, true. And the fourth case will come from false, false. Okay? So that's what I'm going to write down. This is gonna appear pretty much in every single scenario, okay? So for the AND case, we have our 4 cases. And remember that AND means, well, we'll get to that in a minute. So let's do P and let's do Q. Okay, so we're going to do P here and we're going to do Q here. So we're just going to basically write down our 4 cases from over here. So if you could remember, just to make this simple as you move along, that you want to do true, true, or true, false. Or it could be false, true, or it could be false, false. Okay, so true, 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 false, false, true, false, false. All right, so notice that the first case is both true and the last case is both false. And then the 2 middle cases would be a variation of true and false depending on the order. Okay, so that we're going to do that over and over and over again. You'll probably have this memorized by the time we finish. So we're going to do P. So remember, the AND symbol is both. Okay, so that's from our previous lesson. So AND means both. All right. So what's going to happen here is that we're going to mark true. So 2 statements with an AND. This is going to be true only if both are true. True only if both are true, both statements. Okay. True only if both are true. So both have to be true here. And that's only one case, and that would be right here. So that was the only case. They're both true. That means that P and Q is true. The rest are going to be false. Okay, so the conditions to make an AND statement to be true would be 2 trues. All right? That's the first scenario. Let's go to the OR scenario. Okay, so the OR scenario. So remember that the OR scenario OR means one or the other. Hold on a second. One or the other, or both. Okay. So P or Q. Let's first write our cases. Okay, so case 1, case 2, case 3, Case 4. So case 1, remember, is two truths and then true false, false true, just reverse those, and then last one is false false. All right. So P or Q, for one of these to for the or statement to be true, basically we're going to put true if any are true. If any are true. Because it means one, if one is true or the other is true, or both. Okay? So it's different from the and symbol, okay? Which it needs to have both true and that's it. So this one, it can have any true. As long as any one of those are true, it's going to be true. So the first case is true because it has two truths. This second case would be true because the first one's true. Third case is true because the second statement is true. And the last case is false because neither one of those is true. Okay, so this will be the answer then for both of those cases. Okay, P and Q, or P or Q. Okay, so this is what we have so far. We have the negation. It's the opposite. You have the both, which is the and. Both have to be true. And for or, one or the other or both need to be true. Okay. So let's go to the next page. And let's do if then. So if then, and so we have P, Q, if P then Q. And so here, if then, an if then statement is going to be always true. So always true except what? Except when the premise is true and the condition is false. So whenever you get premise is true and condition is false. So that's the only case when these statements will be false. Okay, so besides that, they're always true. So let's take a look at case 1, case 2, 3. So remember, it's true, 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 false, then false, true, and then false, false. Okay. So following this concept, always true except when you get a true and then false. If it's true, then false. So that means that this is true, this is true, this is true, and the only exception is right there. There's the true first, the second is false, so that's going to be false. Okay. So the book has a pretty good explanation of why. So, sorry. So if you want to know why this is the case, where it's always true except for the true false, if you go to page 115, okay, you will read a scenario where the premise is getting an A and the conclusion is someone buys a car for you. So anyways, read that and you can see why that is the only case that is false, okay? So the next one I want to look at would be the case of the biconditional. So we have if and only if, or abbreviation IFF. Okay. All right, so we have our 4 cases. And so what's going on here is that an if and only if statement is only true. So true only when both are true or both are false. So both are true or both are false. So in other words, we're looking for a true only when you basically get TT or FF. Okay. Okay, so here's our TT, that's true. Here's our FF, and that's true. The rest are false. Okay, so this is the last case before we get in, or the last scenario before we get into our examples here for the odd only. Okay, so let's get started on the examples. Okay, so now we know the scenarios, and you have to refer back to your notes to complete these, but basically, okay, let's do the odds. So we're going to determine the truth value. Okay, cats have fur and dogs bark. So we're not going to do a truth table. We just need to follow the cases when these things are true, the different symbols for each statement. So for example, cats have fur, that's a true statement. Dogs bark, that's a true statement. The and would be this symbol here. Okay. So the question is this statement true or is it false? Well, according to the and, for this statement to be true, you need both have to be true and both are true. Okay. Why is it true? For and, both have to be true. Okay? So this is the answer here. Okay, let's take a look at number 3. Water is wet, that's true. Or the beach is sandy, that's also true. And so here we're looking at the or scenario, which it could be one or the other or both. And this case is both. So this is also true. Why? So this is true because for the or, at least one has to be true. Okay, I'm not going to write that explanation every time. I'll say it, but I won't write it. Okay, that's the gist. That's, if you're asked why, that's what you would write. All right. So let's continue here with number 5. So 2 is less than 3. That is true. And 4 is greater than 1. That is false. Okay, so the condition for and is that both have to be true, and this is not the case. So this statement will be false. Okay. Now, let's go see number 7. Okay, number 7. Red is not a color or black is not a color. Okay, so red is not a color. That's false. Or black is not a color. That's also false. One of them has to be true for this statement to be true, and neither one of them are true, so this is false. Okay, there needs to be at least one true somewhere, and it's not there. Let's go to number 9. 3 plus 1 is 4, so this is false. Okay, and 4 minus negative 5. 4 minus 5 is 1. That is also false. And this is false. They both have to be true, and not even one is true. So that's the gist of how you apply the rules to the statements. Let's keep going and finish up a few more on the next page here. So let's go to number 11. Number 11 is, let's see, this is true. And then it's an if then. So if true, then 3 plus 3 is 6. That's also true. So remember, these are all true except for the true false scenario. So this is true. Okay. So let me just write. So this is all true except this scenario right there. Okay. Now, number 13. Atlanta is in Georgia. That's true. Then Orlando is not in Florida. And that is false. Okay. So this is the exact scenario or the case where the if then is false. This is the only case. So this is false. All right. So now let's switch it up and translate some symbols. So let's go to 15. These are truth values. So these will get, you will see these later in other sections, although you may have to find the truth value yourself. But this one is given to you. So P is true, Q is false, and R is true. Okay, so I'm just going to basically substitute the truth values. Of each statement. Okay, so let's see what that looks like. So the negation of, let's set this up. So number 15 is the negation of P. Well, what is P? P is true. Q is false. Just copying it down from our list right here. And then R is true. So we can do this one step at a time. So first of all, we need to do what's in parentheses first, which is this one. And then on the left side, and then over here, we can go ahead and deal with that negation. So the first thing, true, if true, then false. That's the only case that scenario is false. So this is false. And then we have the negation of true, which is false. The opposite of true is false. And then the negation of false on the left side is true. And so our final decision here to determine the truth value will be true or false. True or false, one of them has to be true. And we do have at least one to be true, so this is going to be true. Okay, so this is number 15. Okay, so just to recap, first I substituted, then we did the arrows here, then we did this, and then we did that. Okay, let's do one more, number 17 here on this page. And this one we can do right under here. So okay, so the negation of P, so P is true, Q is false, and R is true. So all I did was substitute the values, and now we can go ahead and do the negation, and we can also do the parentheses. So let's just do the parentheses first. So if false, then true. Remember, those are all true except for one particular case, and this one is true. The negation of true is false. And again, we have if false, then true. So the last step would be to put true down here. Okay, so that is practicing some of the principles before we get to the truth tables. So now, let's go to the next page and start our truth tables. All right, so our first truth table is going to come from number 19, because I'm doing the odds. Since there's so many here. And so you want to set up your cases. So the setup basically looks like this. I'm going to put it in black here, or your table. So you have P, you have Q, and then I'll show you what to do for the next part, okay, in a minute. So then we have case 1. But you don't really have to write case 1, case 2 every single time if you don't want. So remember, this is true, false. I'm sorry. True, 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 false. False, true, and false, false. Okay, that's always how it starts, because you're looking at your 4 cases for 2 statements. Now, the book wants you to, well, the first method that's presented is basically copying down exactly what you see, doing one thing at a time. But but doing different order and jumping around. So I don't really do it that way. You're welcome to do it that way. But I actually use the alternative method. So this alternative method starts on page 108. Okay, that's the one I'm going to be presenting. That's the way I do them. I always like to put my answer to my truth table at the very end of the table. Okay, so for that to be the case, then I do one thing at a time here. So first of all, we're gonna do the. So we see there's two things to do here. So we have to do the or. Okay, and then the second, or the last in this case, because when you have two steps, is going to be the negation. Okay, and I'll always point that out first before I begin, and then we can go ahead and so I'm going to do P or Q right here. And then I'm going to do the negation over here. Okay? So the order that I read over here, I'm going to say, okay, this is first and this is last. I always like to put my answer last on the table. So the first thing we're looking for or. This is or. So all we need is just one truth for it to be true. So we're going to start filling out. So this is true because we have two that are true. This one is true because there's one true. This one is true because there's one true. And this one's false because there aren't any that are true for the or. Next, we're going to look at the negation. So the negation is going to be just changing the truth values, okay, to the opposite. So I have true, 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 false. So now it's going to be false, 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 true. Okay. So that is the final answer of this statement. Okay. So this is the alternate way to do it, where you do different things. You do them in order, and you end up having the answer at the end instead of somewhere in the middle or in the left or something like that. Okay, so let's take a look at 21. So just to make this a little bit faster, I'm going to do one color here. Okay, so remember it's case one is true, 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 false, false, true, and false, false. Okay, so before I set up the table, I'm going to say, what am I going to do first? I'm going to go ahead and do the negations on each side first. So I'm going to do this first. I'm going to do this second. I'm going to negate both of those. And then last, I'm going to do the or right there. Okay, so I'm going to begin with negating P. Then I'm going to negate Q. And then I'm going to do or at the end. All right, so let's see what this looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and negate the P. So the P column is going to get negated. So false, false, true, true. Okay, we're looking at the P column. Okay, then we're going to negate the Q column. So the Q column is true, false, true, false. So I'm going to put false, true, false, true. And now that I have negated those, the last step is to do the OR. Okay, and the OR, the last column is you're focusing on your two negations columns. So now we're going to go ahead and do, all right, or one of them has to be true for it to be true. So this is false, this is true, and this is true. And that's the final answer right there. Okay. So again, this is the alternative method, and that's the only method that I present. You're welcome to do it a different way if you like the other videos or the explanations in my math lab. Okay, so 23, we're going to go ahead and do the same process. So PQ, true, 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 false, false, true, false, false. All right, so what am I going to do first? I'm going to do what's in parentheses first. And before I do one of the main symbols, I'm going to do the negation first. Then I'm going to do the if-then second. And then we're going to do this negation last. Okay, so let's see what that looks like. So I'm going to do negation of Q. Then I'm going to do, let me not do that. Let me see. Let me just put the symbol. And then I'm going to do this last symbol. Okay, so first of all, let's negate Q. That's just flipping the values. So that's going to be false. So if it's true, false, then I'm going to do false, true, true. Okay. And then you got to be careful. We're going to do P to this one. Okay, we have to ignore the Q column and look at the negation of Q. All right, so we're going to look at if then. So remember, this is if then. So they're all true except for one case, and that case is actually the first case. This case right here is the only one that's false, and the rest are going to be true. Whoops. So this is false, this is true, and this is true. All right, the last step is to negate that column that we just did. And so just flip the values. So, all right, so this is going to be true, false, 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 and we are done. Okay. Okay, on the last page, this one's going to be very, very interesting. You're probably going to hate me for this, but we're going to do it, and it's going to be fine. You're going to make it. So, when we have three statements, okay, we have P, Q, and R. Instead of having 4 cases, that's going to create 8 cases, okay? You're welcome to look at why and all that, but I'm just going to go ahead and create the table, okay? So, so this is going to be a big table. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cases. We have P, we have Q, and we have, and we have R. All right, so the truth values for this one is going to be, they're all going to be true. Then the last one could be false. You're just going to have to copy this from the textbook or from the notes. So they're all going to be true. I'll give you a clue. They're all going to be true in the first one, and they're all going to be false in the last one, right? So now everything in between is, okay, 1 false in the third column. How about a false in the second column? And then how about How about a false in the second and third columns? Okay, so those are my first four from 4 truths in the first column. Now we're gonna have 4 false in the last column, in the first column. So it's gonna be so basically so half are true, half are false. So now we're gonna do false, true, true, false, true, false, and false, false, true. And those are our 8 cases or scenarios, unfortunately, but we can do it. So let's take this one step at a time. And again, we want to look at what are we going to do first. So I want to do parentheses first. Inside the parentheses, there's 2 things to do. I'm going to do the negation first. Then I'm going to do the and second. And then last, I'm going to do the if then right there. Okay. So let's get this set up. So first we're going to negate R. Then we're going to do the ands, and then we're going to do the if then, okay? And by the time we do our if then, we're going to have our answer. All right, let's take a look. So let's go ahead and quickly negate R. So we're going to focus on this third column and just put the opposite of what you see. So false, true, false, true, false, true, false, true. All right, so those basically switch every other time. And so now we're going to go ahead and do the ands. And so if you read the question again, it says Q and negation of R. So we're going to need to connect those 2 concepts. So we focus on those 2 columns only. So we have Q. So we're looking at Q and negation of R, and. So remember that and needs to be both true. Everything else will be false. So the only scenarios where they're both true would be right there and right there. Okay, those are the only ones that are going to be true. So if you want to start with those, you can. Everything else is going to be false. Okay, because and has to have both statements to be true for it to be true. And now we're going to do the if then. So if you go back to the question, it's P, if P, then all the other stuff we just did. So that result is this column right there that we just worked on. All right. So the last and final comparison will be looking at the first column, which is P, and the last column that we had to do ourselves using all the principles that we learned. So looking at those 2 columns, we're going to do if then. And remember, if then is true. It's true. It's always true, except in the case of the true false. Okay. So this is true, except for this case. This case right here. So let's go ahead and look for that case. Let's look for a T first and a false second, and we got it in the first one, so that's false. Okay. And we have 2 more right here. So those are the only cases where the if then is false, everything else is true. And voila, you have your answer to the truth table. Okay, guys, so we obviously only did 1, but it is a great mental exercise to go through 8 cases which come from the three statements. So hope you had fun here, and obviously you want to rewind and do some, or backtrack, whatever it's called, to be able to look at this again or look at the parts you need more help with. Okay, so that is it for this section. That's plenty of practice, and we're going to stop the video now. Obviously you can do more problems from the textbook, but those are optional. Okay, and only the ones I put in the video you're responsible for having in your notebook. Okay, so if I just make up and say, hey, let's just do number 10 in the textbook, then you're gonna have to actually copy that one down for a notebook quiz. Okay, but for this section, since we got a lot done here, we're gonna go ahead and stop, and we'll see you in the next video.